Tonight uh, you're going to see Joe Brancato from the Penguin Repertory Theater and Craig Smith with the actors and director, people from the Domino Heart that he's going to introduce to us. Also, if you could please visit our website, rocklandartsfestival.org, and look at the 175 plus artists. The work is amazing. It really is quite beautiful. I think you're going to be taken with it. And one last thing that I have to say is this festival was made possible with funds from the Decentralization Program, a re-grant program of the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of Governor Cuomo, the New York State Legislature, Arts Westchester, and PFLAG Rockland. So right now it is my pleasure. Sorry about that. Thank you again for joining us this fourth Monday evening of the Arts Festival. Tonight we're going to meet Joseph Brancato and learn about the Professional Equity Theater Penguin Repertory, which is located right here in Stony Point, New York in Rockland County. We will be treated to some lively personal anecdotes from the charismatic visionary founding artistic director, highlighted with images from Penguin Rep's performance history. Hi, Joseph, and welcome to the final Monday night special event of the Rockland Arts Festival. Thank you. New York. Welcome, Joe. So happy to have you with us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Well, actually here. Where am I? I'm floating somewhere in front of that beautiful barn. I don't know where I am anymore. But I love that you called me Joseph. Introduced me as Joseph, which is so interesting because since we go back, you and I, so many years, but that echoes. Yeah, because I hardly ever go by. Everyone knows me as Joe, but hearing Joseph made me feel so. It was almost Yussel. I almost felt like you were going to call me Yussel, which would have really gotten me excited. But those, what can I tell you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Doing a lot of artwork and showing and being very happy about all that.
So Thank God we have this, right? Thank God we have those gifts.
Oh, for sure. So the first thing I wanted to ask you about is something that's on the website that I absolutely fell in love with when you told us about it. It's called Keeping the Theater Alive. Yes. And the project, I read it was a project of Dan Loria, who's in the Wonder Years in Lombardi. And people can view over 20 actors on there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Dan and I were chatting about going back, obviously, at the top of this horrible period, about, how to address this on some level. And he was fabulous in coordinating some wonderful, wonderful actors, a number of them, Bryan Cranston, Tony and Emmy winner from Breaking Bad, and a number of other brilliant, brilliant actors, Jimmy Smith and the rest, and just had them record something for, a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, and it became this incredible combination of different voices, of people alone in their rooms and doing monologues or something that they've always wanted to do for the camera. And it's turned out to be just a love letter to live theater. And people have really been enjoying it. So I encourage people just to go to our website, which is penguinrep.org, and click it on, pour yourself a Chardonnay or whatever you wanted, and just enjoy it. It's really, it helped us to get through. We're also, in light of that, we also are doing, we did, Ann Dowd from The Handmaid's Tale did Dollhouse 2 for us online, which was very nice virtually. And upcoming, we have, if you go on our website, you'll know about it, Courage, which is being read by the author, who is John Peelmeyer. John actually wrote the play Agnes of God. And this is his reading of this play called Courage, which is about J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan. So we have that coming up, and we have the Bobby Kennedy episode coming up, and then we have a wonderful movie that is written by and starring the wonderful Jeremy Reich, who was the star of Sabbath Girl. It's called Utah, because he was the only Jew in Utah. So he did this wonderful offbeat movie. So we have a lot of things going on if you go on site, and it's a way to get us through till June, because in June we're going to be doing on the lawn a little bit of some concerts, some really wonderful musical concerts. And that'll be June and July outside the theater until we're able to step inside the theater.
That sounds wonderful. Would you mind telling us how your interest in theater was born and nurtured, and did your family and friends encourage you? Did you have any family who participated in the theater?
Kind of feel yes to all of that. Mom and Dad loved theater, loved movies. I mean, our afternoon on Saturday was sitting and watching $1 Million Movie and all the old films. I mean, that's what it was. We just, yeah, it was just part of the zeitgeist of the family. My mother, in her earlier years, was in Hollywood, and she was actually in Hunchback of Notre Dame, with Charles Lawton. She was on the set for that, and my uncle was the technical director of that movie and a number of others. She had Hollywood in her veins, and my dad always loved Shakespeare, and so we had that in the family. My sister is a fine artist and was a performer as well, and I just grew up with. It was no big deal for me to start a theater on 222nd Street in the Bronx between the alleyways when I was 9 or 10, which is actually the truth. And I just started a little theater company and would do the miracle plays, the best crucifixion of Annie. I mean, it beat the original. I'm just telling you. When I remember having one of my kids on the block, Tommy Cowan, and I remember giving him little gloves dipped in ketchup so that when he took the position in the crucifixion, it really looked great. I mean, it was fabulous. So anyway, that was my childhood growing up doing plays. And then I was on board ship. After high school, I went to the service, and on board ship, I developed a little company. On the fantail of the ship, we would do scenes from the military, and everyone would act it out. And I was the odd man on that ship. And everyone loved the odd man. So I don't know, I always had it. Then I started teaching at North Rockland High School and started a theater company. The theater department there revived that, and with students who to this day remain dear friends of mine, members of my board. Your brother being one.
Yes, I was going to say that's how I got to know you, was through your brother.
Right, Fran Newman, and a whole slew of Liz Ann Fox, Stephen Grant. Just these incredible people in my life. So it's been, talk about a support system. I have been so blessed, Aviva, no matter how difficult the journey has been at times, to sustain not only the theater, but the career in theater, having not only the support of my dear late mom, who was incredibly supportive, and the family end of it, but also my partner, Andrew, totally a gift to the Penguin Theater, and all of these individuals over the years. In fact, I'm gonna turn the table on you for a second. I'm going to show something. Can you see? Wait, let me see.
You have to pick it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, my dad.
That's right. This is Aviva's dad with a woman named Cohen. Cohen, right? That was her name.
I don't remember.
Yes, she was. Oh wait, I'm trying to get it with this craziness. Do you see it or don't you?
Yeah. There you go. There it is. There it is. Perfect.
There you go. Yeah, this is from Lovers and Other Strangers, which we did at the barn, and you designed, Aviva, this is like I'm interviewing you now. You designed the logo for that.
Yep, the poster.
I found this, and this is another one of Dad's.
A little higher and a little more to your, what would that be, your left.
How's that?
There you go. Look at my dad.
Yes, there you go.
And to tell our audience about how long ago that was. My dad passed in 1990, so this is way.
Yeah, this was probably about 1970, maybe 79, 80. There you go. So we've been around. We look great though. Look at us.
We do.
My God, virtual looks great. The only thing I want tapes. I want things to lift. But anyway. So we got to get serious.
That's why I'm loving the masks. It's like it's all from here down.
So there we go.
Yes, it's great. It's awesome. I want my eyes.
Absolutely.
So the next question is, what motivated you to focus on original work? And was there a particular event that inspired you to go in that direction?
Uh, yes. I don't know if it was a specific event, but a feeling. I had when I started the theater, we did tried and true plays for a few years, and I enjoyed doing them, but I kind of wanted to raise the personal stakes for myself, kind of knowing that I wanted to bring to the community, to the Hudson Valley specifically, I wanted to bring to the community something that was outside, meaning artists, designers. And in order to do that, I had to attract them because artists are everyone's always looking for the challenge or the next step. I had to go to new works, and I found that when I was going to announce a new work, more artists would be available to me. More artists would be passionate about taking that, perhaps a financial blow for that month, but they were excited about creating something brand new.
Oh,
And I also found that my audience, though it dipped down in numbers when I first started doing new plays, I found that there was such a strength in that smaller number that they understood what I was doing. They understood that this was a not-for-profit organization that was dedicated in building a repertory of new works. So around the holidays, etc., there would be an envelope in the mail of support to our tax-exempt organization. So it kind of shaped for me the audience that I need to develop at the theater, the ones that I really needed to have with us in this journey. And so that's what happened. We grew a family over these years, and now the children and grandchildren of that family. And it's kind of amazing because they understand that, I mean, clearly we'll do things that need to be readdressed again or seen again. But by and large, the excitement has been developing new works and bringing them into New York, bringing them internationally, like The Devil's Music, of The Life and Blues of Bessie Smith by Angelo Parra and starring Mickey Braden, Daniel's Husband, which we took to New York, new works.
um, when or how did the equity contract become a reality?
Well, it is interesting to me. I don't know about everybody out there, but to me it's interesting because in 1982, 83, we were finding that a lot of people were coming to us who are equity members and were faced with the challenge because we didn't have our equity status. So they would even do things like, oh, maybe I'll change my name or do, terrible things to just want to work, So Andrew Horn was the genius behind it. He went down to the union and suggested that perhaps there should be a small professional theater contract, which is basically a contract which is determined by the size of the house. People still get their insurance, still get their unemployment, etc., but it's by the size of the house rather than a flat fee.
So they didn't have that before?
No, that we were the guinea pigs for that. We ran it for a couple of years. Yeah. Then we left that contract because we wanted to enhance the salaries when we started to get a following. So we moved to a guest artist contract, which is more financially feasible for the artist. But that contract, that original contract with Eva, is actually the widest used contract in America because it goes by the size of the house.
Wow.
And yeah, so we took some great steps, and I don't say we, I mean Andrew Horn as executive director developed that and with equity as an offering, and it took footing, and that's how it happened in terms of getting it. And then once we started doing that, it was just what followed was an incredible amount of organization, an incredible amount of having a stage manager who really knew how to run a stage, having, getting that all. So once that all gets into place, and I guess believing in discipline of work, it just, what happens is you get so much more done. I mean, I remember before the union rules, we used to rehearse every night until midnight or some crazy stuff. I mean, it was insane. Of course, we were all 9 years old, but it was like, that was crazy. And then all of a sudden, oh no, you have to take a break every hour and a half. Oh, you have to stop after so many hours. And at first it was jarring, but it soon became a lesson to me that it's within that framework that you do your best work because you have to get it out, you know.
Absolutely.
And so it's been a very exciting journey for the theater and for our audience.
Yeah, so that's a lot of pioneering.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the real, pioneer steps, like to create
I
something
mean,
that didn't exist before with equity. I mean, that I didn't even know that after all
yeah,
this time.
yeah.
So how did you start to elicit original scripts when Penguin was still, not as well known in the theater circles as it is now?
Well, what happened was I did a production of a published script of Tom Jones, the Henry Fielding novel, and it was written by David Rogers, who lived in Connecticut. I wrote him a letter to come see our production of it, and David came down to see it. And David had written for the Carol Burnett Show and a lot of things, Tamament, Tamament, and all these wonderful places that had artists, TV artists, and skit writers and all that stuff. So he came down and saw it, and frankly, he loved what he saw, and he encouraged us and gave me a play, a new play, which was entitled. It had no title, and then Andrew entitled it. It was called Secondly in the First Place, and it was a cast of like 10 people, and it was just such a romp. It was inside of a man's head his whole life, and it turned out to be quite the journey because it was brand new, right off the page. And for me, it was like it was theater crack because once I had the experience of I'm not saying that taking a great script like Subject Was Roses or whatever it is and doing it and working just on the acting and the interpretation of it isn't a hoot. But taking something where you have no idea whether or not this is going to work. You just don't. So you have to trust each other, trust yourself, trust everyone to try to pull this off. So when that happened, that was the start. And we said, let's do more of this.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it's been working. It's been absolutely working. So, have there been any plays that had unexpected appeal that you had one thought about it, or something like um, something that stands out in your mind that you thought was going to go one way, went another way?
Oh yeah, sure. Some went south. Some went south. And I don't mean geographically. So yeah, there have been a couple of plays that I thought, oh, this is really good, and then all of a sudden, since we didn't do out of town tryouts, we were the tryouts. You would find out inside of 1, 2, 3 audiences, oops, this isn't really working. On the other hand, on the more positive side, all of a sudden, when that final element of theater is added, which is the audience, which is why this virtual readings and stuff like that are fun, but not anywhere near live theater, because you're missing one major ingredient.
The audience makes it a dynamic equilibrium.
Totally. And you can never say it's the same production night after night.
Exactly.
Something has changed. Either the lady laughing in the third row generates that, or the man snoring in the first row. But whatever it is, it kind of like gives you this breathe. It's almost like breathing in and then breathing out, and the audience is breathing out. And so it's this back and forth, this exchange of the ideas of a play, the words of a play, the feeling, the emotions of a play. And what's fabulous is it joins everyone in one moment and in time. And the reaction. I mean, I love my most favorite part about theater at the barn is when we have our talkbacks afterwards.
Yes.
I remind them all, you paid for a ticket, you sat here, you have every right to voice your feelings about or your reservations about. And through much of that, we've developed plays towards production. We've heard a lot of people. We engage our audience. And there's nothing better than an audience that is engaged with a company like ours. There's nothing. That's the most important part.
I'm always that lady in the third row who's laughing really loud.
Yes, that's what.
So tell us about some plays that began under Penguin's wing and
Mhm.
went on, had growth and went on to bigger, wider audiences.
Sure, sure. One certainly is a play that Andrew Horn commissioned through the New York State Council on the Arts. It's a play based on the book The Lost Boys, and it's based on the Barry story, J.M. Barry and his development of Peter Pan. Um, that we did at the Penguin. We got Alan Mead to write the script. It's called The Man Who Was Called Peter Pan, The Man Who Was Peter Pan. And we did it there. And then eventually that play, my goodness, that play was done at ART and then done as a film with Johnny Depp.
I
And
remember
then it became a Broadway musical and went on. And the interesting little side story to that for just all of everybody who's listening, I know you would care about this, otherwise other people wouldn't care, but I think you guys would, is that we had a limit on what we could afford in terms of cast size. So one of the boys, we asked Alan to just overlook one of them in the telling of this particular story. So he did that, and we did it with the four instead of the five boys, whatever it was. Interestingly enough, we did that research. From that point on, in the movie, in the Broadway show, and everything, it was never corrected. Think of the millions of dollars spent on a movie, on a Broadway show. Tap, 1, 2, 3, Peter Pan, Peter Pan. Who cares? Go read the story. You could have afforded one more. And then we realized how incredibly intensely we were involved with that birth of that child, that play. And then that went on lovely. And then, of course, the Devil's Music, which I mentioned before about Bessie Smith, which.
Yeah, I'm going to screen share just for a minute. So that, oops, wait a second. You know what? Let me, I have to put the picture up first.
Sure, you're doing this all yourself. I'm very impressed.
Steep learning curve when you're teaching remotely and you haven't planned on it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. All right, so now I can do this and do that and do that.
Oh, look at that.
The Devil's Music with Mickey Braden.
Yeah, and an incredible band behind her. Jimmy Hankins, Keith Loftus on saxophone. Just really, really great people. Yeah, I went to Mickey and I had worked together on a number of shows, and we said, let's do something creative. And she mentioned Bessie. She played some tapes for me of it, and went to Angelo Parra to write the text, and we brought it to life. Yeah, that's Keith Loftus and Mickey. Boy, folks love that. We took that all over. We went to Cape Cod, that beautiful theater up there. We went to the West Coast. We went to Canada and the Montreal Jazz Festival, and we killed them at the Jazz Festival. So yeah, it's very nice, that play. And what else, Daniel? What else are you going to show? Let me see what you.
I just had one more picture of Mickey Braden. I love that picture of her.
Of course, I love that. Good skin. Good skin.
Yes, absolutely. So I have a picture of what the barn used to look like, since you are in front of what the barn looks like now.
Right. This was the barn that was actually empty when I got there. The barn was the barn for the Gilmore Stone Mansion on the property of the Stony Point Conference Center. And it had been used for one summer with some missionary plays, and that sort of went south. And so it closed it up if there wasn't a great, desire for that. So we took it up and we made it happen. We put seats in, got air conditioning and heating.
Gorgeous logo design.
That logo, and there's Our Lady of South Division Street. That's written by a wonderful playwright locally in Nyack, Tom Dutzek. And now it's called The Miracle of South Division Street, actually.
So for anyone that has not been in the theater, this is the view from the very back top seating, which is very little of. Most of the seating is It's like you're sitting in the living room with your family, except
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah.
But this is you. Joe always addresses the audience in the beginning.
Yeah, it's it's going to be interesting because we're kind of a touchy-feely bunch, the whole theater crowd that comes and the audience, and it's going to be tough not to just like wrap my arms around people and say welcome back.
Yeah.
I hope that changes soon. This is a play that was written by a man named Erasmus Fenn. Coincidentally, my middle name is Erasmus, and I will tell you that Erasmus Fenn doesn't talk to anyone but me, and he and I are incredibly close, and that's about all I'll say. But Rasmus Fenn is a wonderful, I guess you would say, pseudonym for this play, and I was so fortunate to do that play at the Barn and then move it off Broadway. This play is called Freed, and this stars Sheldon Best, who's a star on the rise. And this play was about the first freed African American slave to go to college. And the minister who had encouraged his college days turns out, of course, wanted to hone him for the Back to Liberia movement.
Right.
It's a very interesting, touching play. There's Sheldon showing his best asset. And yeah, an amazing time. We took this down to 59 East 59th Street in New York.
I saw it down there too.
Yeah, and it's just a wonderful play, wonderful work.
Very strong.
Charles Smith wrote that play. Yeah, very. And it developed, a great relationship with those people.
And here's one of my favorites.
What is that?
Daniel's
Husband.
Husband.
Daniel's Husband by Michael McKeever. It's an interesting story how this one came about. First of all, that's set by Brian Prather. I love Brian's work. And we did this play because one of my subscribers was down in Miami and went to a JCC, and they were doing, I don't know whether they still a reading of it or a production of it, but it was kind of as they described it, as kind of a skeletal production, but they loved the story, and they sent me the script. I read it, I loved it. I called the agent, she hooked me up with the playwright. We became fast friends, and we went into a developmental process, doing it at the Penguin, and then bringing it into New York to the primary stages, and then eventually bringing it to the beautiful West Side Theater on 43rd Street in Manhattan. It's a touching story that speaks to everyone about being prepared in life and love for the most unfortunate turns that life can take. And it really touched everyone in the heart. So, we love that. Oh, wow. This was the very first production I did of Cobb. Yes, Cobb is a play based on, of course, Ty Cobb, that infamous baseball player, and the wonderful late great David Canary in the Red Robe. You probably recognize him from. Older people will recognize him from Bonanza when he played Candy, and then he was on Stokes for years, and a great stage actor. And we got together with James Kyberd, who was an early member of my company, who I love, and we got together and did this production first. Then later, the production, I did another production of it in New York, which moved, and that evening, some famous people were in the audience. They decided they wanted to produce it. They moved it off Broadway, and we just did a revival of it 2 years ago. That's the revival of it with a different cast, also equally as wonderful. And we would have taken that in next again to the city, but unfortunately with COVID, everything has been put on hold. But I really love the story that it tells. And we were able to bring this play in town last year. It's called The Sabbath Girl. And Sabbath Girl was a hoot. It is written by a brilliant writer, Carrie Gitter, his name is. And we had the opportunity to present it at Penguin. again, a premiere. And then we took it into 59 East 59th Street down in the city. And it ran so successfully um, that they asked us to extend it there. And we felt we had an upcoming season, so we passed on the extension. And thanks God, as they say, that was perfect timing with Lauren Singerman dressed in the garb. That's the girl all the way on the end. Thanks God, because a week later they closed New York because of COVID,
Yeah.
and we would have lost our shirts. So the fact is that the Sabbath Girl was a blessing. That we did it to great success, and my relationship with Carrie is terrific. In fact, Carrie is working on two new plays for Penguin. One is an adaptation of Henry Fielding's play story, um, Joseph Andrews, and also he's working on a new play about Frank Sinatra and Tommy Dorsey. Yeah, in their in Frank's young years. Yeah, and it's kind of cool. We just did a reading of it the other night. So what's more exciting than that? New talent coming up. This guy's a young chap, writing beautifully. Um, believing in theater, the power of theater, when certainly he can go off to LA and start writing, and I hope he does, right, to make a nice living for himself, but understands what the power of theater is, the way our audience does, you know.
Yeah. So you have some upcoming plans. You mentioned something about June and July.
Yes, Aviva, we're going to, in June and July, we'll be presenting some beautiful talent, musical talent, on the lawn on the side of the barn. So when people come up to the theater, they'll pass the entrance of the theater on foot, and they'll come to the back end, and we'll have set up comfortable chairs, not like lousy, bad chairs like the folding chairs that hurt you. We're going to put nice chairs, and you know what I mean? It ain't shiva, it's theater. Stop already. So we're going to put nice chairs. We're going to have some terrific talent. We're going to have Terry Waldo thing. We're going to have Neil Berg come and do his Piano Man thing in honor of Billy Joel. We're going to have an evening of Patsy Cline. We're going to have some really wonderful events on Juneteenth, in fact, which is June 19th. We're going to have Guy Davis, the son of Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee.
Wow.
Yes, and Nikki Braden and other surprises to honor Juneteenth, and that's the first one. And then we'll be following it week to week. And you know what I can say, I guess, in terms of my doing my duty here, the due diligence, is that go to penguinrep.org
Right.
for information, and we'll post everything. If it's not up today, it'll be up tomorrow. I promise you. You know,
who knows? It could turn into a Tanglewood experience.
Well, you know, there's been discussion. Do you know what's so this is so beautiful? We were talking about this opportunity with the center as well, and because there's a lot of land there, and possibly having an ongoing concert in different areas of, you know, making it bigger. And talk about the tradition of this family, of the Penguin family. Fran Newman McCarthy, who was co-founder with me at the theater when she was my student, her son, Dylan McCarthy, is a fabulous musician. And even more so, he's very into the business of booking of concerts, and he knows his stuff. So my little silent prayer is that Dylan really gets a hold of something like this and works in kind with brilliant people in the area like Joe Durso and other people from Arts Rock, Elliot and Forrest, you know, and works with them and maybe develop something like this. So we have because years ago, Fran and I did a series called Penguin Jazz on Monday night, and I'd like to revive that as well so that we expand, always looking for new, different things to do. So we're on that journey.
It sounds wonderful, and unfortunately, my time with you has come to an end. I can never get enough Joseph Brancato.
You're so sweet. Oh, Aviva, it's so good to see you, and I love seeing occasional glimpses of your art, your creation, your artwork. And I know my mom was especially fond of you and your great talents, and so it's a great bond that we've all had in this community. And I do pray that my theater heart aches for us all to be together again, just to see each other, celebrate things, argue about a play, laugh about a play, think about a play, and maybe forget about some troubles.
Yes, thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate your time more than you know.
Thank you
so
so
very
much.
much.
It's my pleasure. My love to everyone out there. Thank you so much.
All right, good night.
Good night. Bye.
Okay. Let's see. All right, I have to go back to, oh, I'm still on speaker view. Three people leaving the room. Admit. Okay. I don't know why I still have this little window over here. That's kind of weird. I don't have no idea. Maybe I should do that. Hide thumbnail. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I just want to mention quickly on the calendar, we have one more event after tonight, Thursday, April 29th. There is a literature and film panel discussion with Joe Allen, filmmaker, Bill Batson, writer and artist, moderated by Cheryl Bourne, director of ACOR. And now I'm thrilled to welcome a very patient man. Sorry about that whole, I don't know what happened there. I really apologize. Craig Smith, producing artistic director, and Elise Stone, artistic director, will share a view of the Phoenix Theater Ensemble located in Manhattan and in Nyack. The Phoenix Theater Ensemble is a theater company that offers vibrant new plays as well as great classical presentations. As a not-for-profit artistic organization, they are committed to fostering a diverse resident company of classically trained and exceptionally skilled theater artists. So what I'm going to do is share their excerpt from the Domino Heart, and just have to let that come up and then pause it for a second and then screen share. Why are you not showing now? There we go. And share. Yes, well, no use thinking about it. The irony, of course, is that it was Peter who wanted to get the car with all the supposed safety features. I was pushing for the, I kept saying, I want the cute yellow one with the removable top. I remember thinking there was an opening for a little joke. Don't we all, dear? Or something. But Pete, we gotta think of Gracie, he said. And it's true, I wasn't. Well, not that our daughter would be. That any of us would be killed in the car we were about to buy. You just don't think of those kinds of things. But he did. Peter did. I remember once here at the cottage, Peter's parents were visiting. At one point, Linda, Peter's mother, went to bed, and I went upstairs to check on our daughter, Gracie. Peter and his father were left talking on the porch. I could hear them from the window going on about the family of loons that had nested themselves at the end of the lake. I sat in a chair with Gracie for one of those late-night nursings, burying my nose in her hair. George, Peter's father, got to talking about Linda, and it was really quite sweet to hear how much he was still in love with her. They'd been together, nearly 40 years? Anyway, at one point, and somewhat out of the blue it seemed,
he let go this deep sigh and said, "I hope she dies before I do." And then Peter, in a sort of tone of understanding, "I know." And I couldn't, what was that? She wasn't sick or anything. I thought that's a terrible thing to say. And then for Peter to agree as if the same could be said for me. Well, but you see, I never understood love the way Peter did. Of course now, but that is true love. I wouldn't wish life on anyone who is lost. Lost because you're as good as dead, but you're not dead. Yours is a death of a different kind, a life of death. It is a life sentence, and you must live it each day with a sort of hopeless Promethean routine. I don't know how he could have known that, except that he must have thought about it if I had died, or more likely. Which brings me back to the car.
Wake up! We've been asleep for too long. Stretch and feel how your soul has atrophied. Rub your eyes and see again. This world is filled with miracles, and our time is short. Good stuff. I know I had you. There's an art to writing sermons, and last Sundays, if I do say so myself, was a doozy. The trick is, and I always say this to young ministers, speak as if you're dying, because you are. Wake up! Our time is short. It's now. It's this moment, this one, gone. And I know they're listening because if you really listen, you can hear people listening. The fidgeting, I believe, arises from the natural discomfort of truth sinking in. The occasional coughs, the creaking of pews, these are good sounds. It's like the buzzer that goes off in hockey when a goal is scored. It means the puck is in the net. Look around this room, I say to them. And of course, no one does. Wake up, rub your eyes, look. And they don't know what to look at. What does he want? I want you to see. See what? What? And they look, and they don't see. And I know this world is in trouble. I get the pass. I dig the deacon, and I wind up. Each one of us is a prayer heard and answered and wasted. It rockets towards the net with such lightning truth that even Satan leaps from its path. Will he score one for Jesus? Wait for it, wait for it. Yes, yes, ha! Hallelujah. Not yet. Live as if you're dying, because you are. In a few hours, I'm going to have a new heart. The old one's given out. I'd like to think because I overused it. It's the waiting game now in the harvest world as they harvest the organ. They often don't call it a heart in transplant world. They call it the organ. Nancy, the organist at St. Paul, says, just to make sure you keep this one in tune and try to keep the pipes clean. She likes to remonstrate with me for all the years that I consumed Bertie's smoked meat sandwiches without heeding a single of her warnings. The heart has a plan of its own, I tell her. It follows naught but itself. As if I were quoting someone else. It's very controversial back home. Shouldn't a man of the cloth respect the fate that God has handed him? I mean, after all, isn't this what I've been waiting for? Heaven and eternal paradise await me on the other side. I don't know about that. I have some questions, to be honest about it. But I like my job. I like raising people's spirits, as it were. I'm good at it, and I get a lot of joy out of it. Nancy likes to tease me. She says, geez, Mortimer, what do you want to hang around here for? You had nearly 70 good years with that heart of yours. And I said, I know, but I was given a lifetime guarantee. She said, no, Mort, no one is given that. It's possible that my body, this church, may not accept the gift of this new organ. And so if it's not to be, heaven and eternal paradise will make good runner-ups. We'll see.
Ja. Ja. Gut, danke. Ihr mochtet das Kuno auflösen und das Gut haben. Alles. Ja, ja, gleich. Sind Sie bereit? Chase Manhattan Bank Kooperativa Kunta Nummer 503. Bereit? 50310 überweisen auf das Geschäftskonto 00476280993. Kann Sie das bitte wiederholen? Mhm. Mhm. Was gut sein nicht. Vielen Dank. Wie heißen Sie? Ah, Sophie. Sie haben eine schöne Stimme, Sophie. Können Sie das bitte sicher machen? Vielen Dank. Auf Wiederhören. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. $76,841. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. I've done better. More and less. So I challenge anyone to find two things that coexist better than good cognac and a David Off cigar. I say no. Oh yes, arbitraging. A little hobby of mine. The simultaneous purchase and sale of the same or equivalent security in order to profit from price discrepancies in different markets. Okay, think of the world economy as a giant heart and lung system, a very active yet unhealthy cardiorespiratory nightmare. Okay, now think of money as oxygen. That should be hard. Look, this here, let's say, are the lungs, which intakes funds from raw materials, gold, oil, steel, whatever, into the capillaries, which would be what? The various international markets where the money is traded for product buying and selling. Follow? It's my job to make sure there's a constant flow of money and product coursing through this ever-decaying body, the world we live in. So, what arbitraging is, basically, is skimming oxygen from the blood. But the world floats on a rolling sea of dollars and cents. A butterfly bats her wings in Malaysia and a hurricane erupts off the coast of Mexico. You've got to be able to anticipate if you want to make big money. The storm, and I'll repeat this, the storm does not stop for anyone. This war right now is the proverbial butterfly. It's affecting trade. People feel uncertain, anxious, and the market reflects that. So I look at market A and I see it slow. I immediately pick up the phone and place an order. Now, while I'm on hold with market A, I pick up line 2 and simultaneously sell the shares to market B, where the value of the share is higher, at least for the moment. Now, before the market stabilizes, market B buys it from me at a fraction more than I paid for it, and a little less than I sell it for. In other words, I buy $1 million worth at a value of 10%, sell it for 12 in an area that's going to sell it at 13, and I make a 2% profit. And all this time, here's the punchline, folks. All this time, never actually using any of my own money. Because as market B is depositing the funds for the shares I just sold them, market A is entering the account to retrieve the funds from the shares I just bought. I never actually own the money. They're just trading through my account, one hand to another. And of course, Tim in accounting gets his cut for letting me play with the company's contingency fund. And when the dust settles, I am left with a substantial piece of a very large pot. $76,841 in 3 minutes and 42 seconds, for example.
Okay. Greg, thank you so much for that, for those excerpts. And I would love it if you could tell us about the play and bring on your people, your actors, your director.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Those were 3 clips from a play called The Domino Heart by Matthew Edison that we did. It's about 3 strangers who are connected by one heart transplantation. Very powerful, very moving. If anybody wants to see the full recording of it, you can do so. Just send me an email at craigvsmith@gmail.com. Let me see, I even got that here. Here we go. craigvsmith@gmail.com, and we'll get that to you. We are Phoenix Theater Ensemble. We've been around for 17 years. We're an award-winning equity theater operating out of New York City for the last 17 years. And then in 2018, we started expanding our programming into Rockland County and Nyack in particular. We started bringing some of our programs up from that we were doing in New York, and we were doing them in Nyack as well. We would most of these were at the Nyack Library, but things like that. We don't have a performance space yet, but we're very, very successful and very embraced by the local community, and it was very good. Now, we thought this was going to be necessarily one way, that we would bring our New York productions to Nyack and not necessarily vice versa. But we met Peter Danish, a wonderful playwright and author from Nyack, and he had this play, The Last Call, and we did a couple readings of that in Nyack, and we loved it, and we announced the world premiere of that. It was going to be in Manhattan, and that was going to be about a year from now, but then of course COVID got in the way of that, so we had to postpone that. Like everybody else, we're just treading water these days, so we postponed that play. It's about Herbert von Karajan and Leonard Bernstein, two of the giants of classical musical theater who were not necessarily good friends, and they had a final meeting. It's a wonderful play. And then also we're planning a performing arts festival to happen in Nyack. It's very ambitious, for 6 weeks. We were going to do that in the fall of 2020. COVID got in the way of that, so we postponed it to the fall of 21. And again, COVID is playing with us right now, so we're still a little bit unsure. If we get the clearance by the state to do this, even though it's outdoors, we also have the union protocols that we have to get over if we can do that. So that's in a bit of a holding pattern right now, but it's really designed to be a community event. We have funding from the New York State Arts Council. We have funding from the National Endowment for the Arts and National Endowment for the Humanities. So it's a big deal, and we're gonna have a great festival. We want this to be an annual event in Rockland and in Nyack, bringing people up to Nyack and to Rockland County during the height of the fall foliage season and seeing these outdoor performances. So that's some of the stuff that we have planned. I'm gonna bring in some people here. I know we're a little bit limited limited on time, and I'm going to have a few questions for them. The director of Domino Heart is Attilio Rogati, who's here, and we have the actors. We have Jessica Crandall and Craig Bannister and John Cosentino. So, Attilio, COVID has gotten in the way of everything, hasn't it, for traditional theaters, but we've benefited a lot from it. What do you see a future for virtual programming for traditional theater companies moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a digital background, right? I mean, not, I started my career as well as an actor and then sort of merged into the digital world and everything. So I've always been a fan of this. But for me, I think digital programming is here to stay. I think there's something to the liveness that can't be replaced. There's something about people coming together in a space to witness something, but you can't deny the amount of a larger amount of audiences that can see the work now all around the world, and the ability to collaborate cross cultures and cross continents, right? Before we were so tied to space, and now, we can have a reading with people from India, from Japan, from China. They can all come together and do something, right? We can then have people, this is one of the first times in years that my parents in Chile got to see my work, right? I'm from Chile and I moved to New York, and they got to see my work live, right? And it's been years since that happened, and they could see and they could share the experience because there was still a liveness to it, right? And I also think the interest around this, I think also for me at least, and I'm sure my actors would agree, is the idea that also is when the Domino Heart was sort of presented to me, there's a version of this where we could have just recorded it as a movie and then just presented it, but we all had a commitment to liveness, right? And I think even in a digital format, there's still a liveness to it that can be done, right? So it's not that they were watching the movie of it, my parents, they were watching the actual actors do it in front of their screens, which is a whole other thing, right? So I guess those are my points of why I think it has to stay. I think it's great for developmental things. I think it's great to get a lot of people's eyes on stuff very quickly. I think it makes the tools very democratic because everybody has access to Zoom, right? So they can all be part of it rather than like, oh, who has the space they can use to rent and show shows? Like, no, you don't need it anymore, right? And I think there's some performances that are really, really, really exciting if they're designed for this medium, right? As to exist within this medium.
I agree with you, Attilio. I mean, we were playing to people that we had never played to before: California, New Mexico, the UK, all of that kind of stuff. And, we did the performances of Domino Heart. We did it in February, and then we extended and we did additional performances in March. So that was a revelation and an eye opener for us. Jessica, who plays Kara in this. Jessica, can you talk a little bit about adapting your performance from a live screen to really doing this totally memorized in front of your computer screen? What's that like?
At first, it's terrifying. I'll be totally honest. It took some getting used to. The rehearsals are a different thing. You're not in a room with other people. You're not traveling to a space. You're just, well, in my case, asking my husband to hide in the bedroom and not make any noise. So that's a different animal. But when we got around to the performances, after all of the rehearsing, it did feel like we were building something, and performing it did feel like doing a play. I couldn't see the people. I couldn't see anyone. I could only see the green dot showing me my computer was on, but I could feel them. And I felt myself giving the performance to them, which was an entirely different thing than the few times I tried to practice on my own. So I felt them. Which was a wonderful surprise.
Yeah, I watched this in rehearsal, and I watched all of the performances, and I watched all three of you adapt to using the camera. You really did, and you really got very adept at it. And this play particularly works really well because it's got a kind of confessional nature to it, and you feel like it's a very intimate conversation between you, the viewer, and the actor with that. John Cosentino, you have a very interesting character, and he has a lot of baggage. He is the product of a very violent rape of his mother. And the character carries that with him, that baggage with him. And he talks about his incredibly complex relationship with his mother. Leo is the character. So John, do you love Leo?
Huh. Yes, I do have love for Leo. Because I pity him. I pity the life that he's feels like he's forced to live. Would me, John, have gone a different route, or would I do things differently? Yes, of course. I'm not this capitalistic like monster that just wants money and sees just money as a valuable thing and can only use that as value as opposed to the love of his family. But it's just seeing that side, like diving deep into that side of Leo, you start to realize like, oh no, he's actually very just, he's sad, and he's this anger and this hate comes from the circumstance that he felt he was dealt, that he was given. And right there, it's like, how can I not pity you? How can I not feel for you with this dark, horrible guilt that you hold on to? And I feel like all you really need is a hug. And it was a lot of like reading, going over the monologue, reading it, trying to figure out who he is. All I want to do at the end of the day is just give this guy a hug and just say, just stop. It's okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've always felt like, when you create a character in a way, I always felt like you create your new best friend, who you were for a while. And it's almost like a doppelganger of yourself. Once that Leo really explains all of that and you understand where he's come from, you do feel pity and you feel love for him as well. Craig Bannister and Mortimer. Mortimer is haunted by regrets in his life. We all have regrets, and I think as you get older, you even get more regrets. They usually come to you about 2 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to go to sleep. But I can see that the regrets that you have, and you do a very interesting thing in this show. I see the regrets, and Mortimer tries to push them away, but still in your eyes, you can see that this man is suffering from the regrets of his life, and he's a 70-year-old man, and he's about to get a heart transplant. What's your process with that? Do you, when you're creating Mortimer, are you thinking about your own past regrets? You put yourself in that situation? How do you do that? These are really hard questions, but how do you do that?
I think one of the, I'm not sure if I'm showing up on here. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, you're on.
Yes, we can see you. And
Okay. I think one of the tools that the actors use to create characters is imagination, and I seem to be able to tap into a depth of emotion that sort of covers my imagination, so I can help create the characters. So I do believe that we do all have regrets. So I am able to tap into my own thoughts of what I wish I could have done in the past to change a situation, in addition just to creating the circumstance based on the writing. And this writing was so rich, so powerful, and the story was so palpable that it was easy for me to tap into the emotion that I needed to show the different levels that Mortimer was actually feeling throughout his time to share his story.
Thank you. Thank you. And this is a question that we get all the time, but I think it's actually really interesting because I think the audience is interested. You guys memorized all of this, and these are like 30-minute monologues that you have to do. And Jessica, you have 2 of them. How do you go about memorizing?
I find that it's different for every show that I do, actually. I don't have a set method, but for this one, I spent a lot of time outside pacing, making the images in my mind, like making a story that I could piece together. I think that's a lot of what I did to memorize this.
What about you, John? What do you do to memorize? When you open the script, you're looking at it for the first time. How do you start doing that?
It was tricky with this one as opposed to any other script I've gotten, just because it starts with German. I'm not familiar with German. So that maybe it was a mistake of mine, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave the German till the end and I'm just going to focus on everything else that's in English. I was freaking out trying to get all these words in my head exactly word for word. But I would say just the writing helped a lot, the way it flowed, because every thought had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it connected to the next thought, and that helped me understand more of like, oh, I know where I'm at, I know what part of the story I'm going at, and I know how to get to this point. So it just sounded very just genuine and human, and that made it a lot easier to just keep in my head.
Thanks, John. Okay, I think the time is up. Again, if anybody would like to see the full recording, you just send me an email at this craigvsmith@gmail.com. We're going to ask you for a $10 contribution. And all of the money goes straight to the actors and the resident ensemble. But this is a very powerful evening, and you'll be very happy with it. I want to thank everybody here. I want to thank the Rockland Virtual Arts Festival. You've done a wonderful thing celebrating the arts of this wonderful county, and 175 artists. I mean, that's just an amazing thing, and that's been a month-long program. Thank you so much, and also thanks to Arts Westchester for putting this together. And it's great being on the same program with Joe and Penguin Rep. They do such a great job up there. So thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. I don't know why I can't see. I'm going to do this. Thank you very, very much. We are honored to have you in our program, and honored to have Joe. And I look very much forward, as everyone does, to being able to be in a theater with all you fine actors, and the knowledge that of all the people that are integral to putting a performance together. So thank you all very much. Thank you for hanging in there. I'm sorry I have no idea what happened earlier, but I did practice, I promise. And don't forget, on Thursday night, April 29th, the literature and film panel discussion with Cheryl Bond, director of ACOR, as the moderator. So thank you, everyone. It was a joy and a pleasure.